Nothing much. In 3 months' time, I want Mr. Aditya to come and meet my parents. PTTT, cough, cough. Aditya wiped his mouth with a napkin and looked at Alicia. What did you say? Aditya was so shocked that he forgot to address her formally. I said I need Mr. Aditya needs to come with me to meet my parent. Aditya took a deep breath and calmed down. Can I know the reason? After all, Miss Alicia, even if we pretend that we are not married by a contract, meeting your parents seems a little out of the place. Hearing Aditya's words, it was then the proud woman finally showed a small blush on her face, making her look even cuter than before. Alicia looked down and picked up the teacup to calm herself. After taking a sip, she felt calmer. The thing is, my family is a traditional family. My parents, uncles, and aunts got married before they turned 20, or at least had been engaged to someone. Soon I will turn 20. My family is pressuring me to get married, or at least find a man and get engaged to him. Ever since Alicia was a small child, she was only allowed to wear kimono, which was a part of their family's tradition. Another tradition or rule of her family was that women cannot show their face to anyone other than their husband. Honestly, Alicia had no problem wearing a kimono or covering her face with a veil. She was used to it and felt comfortable doing it. The only problem she had was with the marriage thing. Alicia's parents totally supported her love life, but she has never found a man who could conquer her heart. Now that she was reaching the age of 20 soon, her parents were ordering her to return home and go on blind dates to find a correct partner. Alicia then suddenly glared at Aditya and spoke with hidden anger in her tone. Honestly, if a certain someone had not become an alcohol addict, then maybe things could have been different for me. When I and my family learned that you were expelled from your royal family, my parents were totally shocked. My angry father went to confront your father and ask him about the marriage. But your father refused to see my father and said that he had gone into seclusion. We asked our mother about the marriage contract. She said Aditya was no longer a part of the royal family, anything related to him had nothing to do with them. Hearing that his mother was being mentioned, something triggered inside Aditya. He suddenly felt nostalgic and a little sad. He can remember the happy days he spent with his mother before everything changed. Unfortunately, their too much love had spoiled the previous Aditya rotten. I wonder how they are doing. Alicia took a second to observe the Dragon King's facial expression. She could see a nostalgic look and a trace of sadness, which was quickly erased. I understand your reasoning, but why me out of all the people? I mean, I am your fiancé, copyright in the name after all. Or unless are you planning to reveal my true identity to your parents? If Alicia wanted, she could have convinced someone who is more handsome and powerful than Aditya for this role. I was looking for a suitable person. But I just don't feel comfortable letting another man get near me. Alicia has been shielded from her childhood. She very rarely played with boys. Not only that, while being busy creating her business empire, she never got the time to look for someone special. After she became the richest woman in her continent, hundreds of thousands of men wanted to marry her even though she have never seen her face. Kings, emperors, and princes, all wanted to have a chance with her. They were not attracted to her beauty. They were attracted to her money. This only made her more cautious toward men and women. Now Alicia can't bring herself to trust a person easily. She is worried that her fake boyfriend would try to use this situation to use her. So you're saying that you're comfortable with me? I am not saying that I am comfortable with you. Rather than letting some random male get near me, I would rather let you act as my fake boyfriend and meet my parents. You will be going there as Aditya, the Dragon King of Eastern Kingdom. Can I say no? Aditya felt going to meet her parents would only bring him more trouble. Do you think after seeing my face you can just back out? Alicia asked in a threatening tone. Sigh. Fine. Let's say that even if we manage to fool your parents, then what's next? How long I will have to keep pretending? Not too long. All of my family members live on the other continent. They will never come back. If you're worried that your private life will be disturbed by this, then you can rest assured as my family members will never come here. By now both Aditya and Alicia stopped formally calling each other. When they talked to both Aditya's parents, they both subconsciously felt that there is no reason to formally address each other. I just need some time. One of the reasons I came to this continent was to expand my guild. My ambition hasn't been achieved yet. In a few years, given how fast we're currently expanding the Seeker of Impurity, in a few years, the whole continent will only have one guild. Alicia, ever since she was a child, liked playing with money. She didn't care about the money itself. To her, the process of making money was like playing a game. She came to this continent in hope of a new challenge. The thrill of overcoming each challenge and making profits made her very excited. Sigh. Alright, but you will have to wait. Tomorrow, I will head out to meet Julia's parents. This was just a one-time thing. Going to another continent sounds very fun and exciting. Good luck on seeing your father-in-law because you will need it. From what I have heard, he is a strict and serious man. Trust me, you don't want to mess with him. Aditya rolled his eyes. As if he wasn't nervous enough. This woman was trying to even him even more nervous. Alright, this concludes our little meeting. I hope you will keep your promise, Mr. Aditya. Alicia had a small smile on her face. The purpose of this meeting has been achieved. Of course, I always keep my words. Aditya stood up with the intention of leaving. Then I shall take my me. Wait. He turned around and looked at her. I heard that you have heavenly crimson dragon bloodline. So Julia told her about my bloodline. Don't worry, I have a tight mouth. No one will ever know about your bloodline. Aditya nodded, feeling relieved. Do you know that you can use your heavenly dragon blood to turn humans into dragonians? Feeling confused by Alicia's words, Aditya couldn't help but ask. What are dragonians? When a heavenly dragon gives a drop of its essence to humans, they transform into dragonians. Dragonians are powerful and superior to humans in every single way. The concept of dragonians slowly fades away as heavenly dragons disappeared with time. Once you have turned a human into dragonians, they will never betray you. Not only that, dragonians' cultivation speed, healing speed, mana recovery speed, and cultivation powers all are superior compared to humans. But the downside is that other than humans no other race can become dragonians. How do you know so much about dragonians? I have a hobby of reading books on various myths and legends. I have found pieces of evidence that dragonians once existed. Maybe as the heavenly dragon, you can also do the same. For once I have never tried giving my essence to another person. If her words are true, maybe I can try it on, Watson. Watson is the second closest person after Julia. He trusts the old man with his life. Making him the first dragonian would be the best choice. Aditya stood there and thought for an entire minute. While Alicia tried to read his thoughts. She also wants to see if he will succeed. Is there anything else you know about Heavenly Dragon? I know a thing or two. Like Nature Flame. Which is a green type of flame that can be used to heal people. Only Heavenly Flame dragons can possess nature's flame. I will give you some books on Heavenly Dragons. It cost me a fortune to get these books. There were 3 torn old books. After placing the books into his storage ring, Aditya once again thanked Alicia. No need to thank me. I am doing this as I am going to use you as a shield later. Alright, I will take my leave then. Alicia watched as Aditya walked out of the room. After the door was closed, Alicia lay down on the couch. I can't believe that idiot woman actually fell for him and now she is even taking him to see her parents. Scene change ____. Knock. Knock. Coming. Click. Julia opened the door and coldly looked into his eyes. Did you like your second wife? Humph. Saying that the alchemy goddess simply walked past Aditya. Yes, I really liked her. Especially those green emerald eyes that seemed to shine even in the darkness. The kitten turned around and fiercely glared at him as if someone had stepped on its tail. But Aditya simply ignored her and continued. Her face is cute but her body was. Aditya stopped feeling he was about to cross the borderline. Gulp. You were saying something? Julia held a sword in her hand as she coldly looked at Aditya. Cough. I can't wait to meet my father-in-law. I am hungry. Let's eat. After some teasing, both finally had dinner together and went back to their own rooms. While Julia went to sleep, Aditya couldn't stop thinking about dragonians. Previous chapter. So what did Alicia talk about with you? She told me that in return for giving me the heart of Peak 6th Order Lightning Forest Deer, she wanted me to prevent as her boyfriend and go to meet her parents. Aditya did not hide the truth from Julia. After all, no matter how beautiful or how wealthy Alicia was, Julia always was his first priority. Knowing that hiding the truth from her would only create unnecessary drama, it was better to tell her the truth from the beginning. Aditya does not want to lose Julia. He had to protect what he had found at any cost. He wanted to be completely honest with her. As expected, the alchemy goddess frowned hearing the Dragon King's words. She coldly looked at Aditya for a minute before asking. Why does she want you to come to see her parents? After meeting Alicia several times, it was clear that the goddess of wealth did not have any thoughts of Aditya. She did not even consider Aditya as her fiancé. The thing is. Without hiding anything, Aditya fully explained everything to her. Contrary to what Aditya expected, Julia did not lose her calm or anything. She continued to eat calmly, making the Dragon King confused. Julia, are you mad? Humph. I am not mad. Julia snorted and sighed secretly. Given how gloriously Aditya was shining, it won't be long before some other vixen comes to seduce him and try to become his wife. In this world, it was normal for king, dukes, and nobles to have multiple wives and concubines. Julia was prepared to share Aditya. Even if she tried, due to the contract, she won't able to stop him from having multiple wives. Even though she hates to admit it, sooner or later, her man was going to become the strongest king on the whole continent given how fast he was progressing. When that happens, Julia can never keep Aditya from having multiple wives. Listen, Aditya, I will say this once. This was the first time he had seen Julia this serious. Yes? You have 7 wives due to the marriage contract. Aside from 7 wives, I will not allow you to have any relationship with other women. Seeing her serious face, Aditya unexpectedly laughed out loud. Ha ha ha. Why are you laughing? Ha. Silly, do you really think I would have 7 wives? Aditya's words only further made her confused. I am more than satisfied with what I have found. I admit that I currently have 7 wives in my name due to the contract. But as long as I manage to reach a certain height in the future, I am confident that I can break the contract. I will never force those girls to marry me. If you're thinking that I am going to marry another kingdom's princess or take the princess as my concubine to have more political connections with other kingdoms, then you're wrong. I would never do that. I only have eyes for my woman. Saying those words, the alchemy goddess blushed. She lowered her head to hide the smile that blossomed on her face. Aditya could see her ears and even her neck was getting red. After about 5 minutes of silence, Julia finally calmed down and raised her head to look at Aditya. By the way, now that we're talking about our future, I think we should discuss how many children we're going to have in the future. Shameless. You're truly a pervert. Julia continued eating her steak. Aditya innocently looked at Julia. What's wrong with discussing my future with my wife? Humph. I never agreed to become your wife. Sigh. Next day. Your Majesty, why do you have new bit marks on your face? Watson noticed the soldiers were trying their best to suppress their laughter seeing their king like that. Sigh. A certain dog barged into my room last time and kept biting me. I tried to fight back but the dog was simply too strong for me. Watson glanced at Julia who was behind Aditya. Seeing her butler's gaze, she blushed and snorted. Watson, come with me. Aditya brought Watson and Julia inside the royal carriage. Majesty, do you have any orders for me? Today, we're going to head out. I don't know for how many days I will be gone. Do not let anyone know about my absence. If they ask where I am, just say that I have gone behind closed doors to cultivate. There is a slim chance that the neighboring kingdoms might try to attack once they learn Aditya has left the kingdom. Understood, Majesty. I already have ordered Scott, Amber, and others to listen to your orders. While I am gone, you will be in charge. Please take care of everything. If things start getting out of your hand, then send me a message, I will return as soon as possible. His 7 generals and Watson were his most trusted people. Recently, Scott, Tyler, Nathan, and Henry all had broken through second order with the pills. While others were close to reaching second order. With the pills made by Julia, in a few months, they should reach mid or peak second order. Your Highness, what should I do about King Ethan and the Nepica kingdom? For now we will remain quiet. If he does anything let me know about it immediately. Understood. Watson, I have something for you. Aditya bit his index finger and then put a drop of his blood on Watson's forehead. Your Majesty, what is this? Instead of being red, the color of the blood was golden which surprised both Watson and Julia. The golden drop of blood on his forehead shined brightly. Do not resist it. Just accept it. Watson stopped resisting causing the golden blood to be absorbed. A crimson-red light enveloped Watson. Under Julia and Aditya's shocked gaze, Watson's cultivation started rising from mid-second order to peak second order and then all the way to beginner third order. Boom! The strong aura of beginner third order was released. The aura was so strong that Julia almost fell to her knees if Aditya had not protected her. The aura of the third order caused all the soldiers who were waiting outside to fall to their knees. The soldiers felt suffocated. Their chest felt heavy and they were having trouble breathing. Watson, calm down. Aditya's words worked like a charm. The crimson aura around him disappeared. My king, this servant apologizes for his rudeness. Watson quickly got on one knee and kneeled before Aditya while lowering his head. Aditya and Julia both felt the voice of Watson has slightly changed. It was not just his voice, Watson now looked 15 years younger. Before he looked like an old grandpa, but now even though his hair still remained white, he looked like he was only 50 years old. The wrinkles on his skin had disappeared. Only a few wrinkles on his face remained. If someone looked carefully they would be able to see the small light red dragon scales growing on Watson's arms and around his neck, collarbone, and throat. I can sense the aura of a dragon coming from Watson. What exactly did you do? Watson also looked at Aditya for an answer. How much do we exactly know about the heavenly dragon bloodline? Julia and Watson shared a look of confusion. As the heavenly dragon, I have the power to turn humans into dragonians. Watson, you're no longer a human but rather a dragonian of heavenly crimson dragon. Tell me the changes you feel in your body. I can feel that my powers have been multiplied by 100 times. My cultivation has reached beginner third order which kind of feels unreal as my cultivation talent is not that high and even after 100 years of cultivating I still was stuck a mid-phase of second order. Exactly. You currently have more strength, agility, stamina, health, and mana than an average beginner third order. Becoming a dragonian also has increased your cultivation speed, healing speed, and recovery speed, by a huge margin. Hearing Aditya's words both Julia and Watson were left shocked. The fact Watson managed to jump from mid-phase of second order directly to beginner third order shocked them the most. Your Majesty, in that case, can you also turn our soldiers into dragonians? Just imagine how powerful the Eastern Kingdom would become once all of their troops turn into dragonians. That's now how things work. I had to give you a drop of essence. Currently, the amount of essence that my body can produce is limited to only 25. Aditya took out a golden bottle that was filled with golden blood. Take this. Give 1 drop of my golden blood to Nathan, Eleanor, Tyler, and Henry. As they are human, they will be able to become dragonians. As for the other 20 golden drops, select the most loyal human soldiers in the army and let them become dragonians. Watson seriously nodded his head while putting the glass bottle in his storage ring. Give special privileges to all the dragonian soldiers. Those 20 dragonians will stay at the castle and train using the pills that Julia made. The dragonians will be the secret weapon of the Eastern King. Remember Watson, other than my 7 generals and the future dragonians no one should know about this. Even if I am killed, I will never reveal this secret to anybody. I will also make sure that the future 20 dragonians also keep their mouths shut. Whoever has become a dragonian won't be able to betray Aditya. The thought of going against him will never cross their minds. This is why Aditya wanted to secretly cultivate this special force. Alright, we shall take our leave now. Julia and Aditya put 2 pills in their mouth. Under Watson's surprised gaze, both of their hair colors started changing to white and blue. Since we're going to leave the kingdom in disguise, there is no need to bring any soldier with us. I will leave everything in your hand. My king, I swear I won't disappoint you. 2 pairs of red wings appeared on his face. Ready, princess. Julia shyly nodded her head. The next moment Aditya and Julia disappeared from the carriage. If one looks at the sky, then one would see a man with wings carrying a woman in his arms and going above the clouds. Previous chapter. Bad wolf, are you not tired? Princess, even if I am tired, this is no place to stop. Just a little more and we should reach the nearest city. You know, if you're concerned about me, you can always feed 1 or 2 mana recovery pills. And also maybe give me a kiss, which would erase all of my exhaustion. Pervert, I am not doing any of that. I don't care if you drop dead. Aditya smiled and continued flying above the clouds. After leaving Watson, early in the morning, Aditya with Julia in his arms flew off above the sky. In this part of the continent, only the Nyland Kingdom had a teleportation array. Meaning that both Aditya and Julia had to travel all the way to the Nyland Kingdom to get access to the teleportation array. Normally traveling to the Kingdom of Nyland would at least take 6 to 7 days. Instead of slowly, the Dragon King just decided to carry his woman in his arms and the sky above the clouds so that no one would be able to see them. Under the light of the moon, as the cold breeze brushed off against both of their skins, Aditya continued carrying Julia at a steady pace. His face right now looked pale, as if his face has been drained of blood. He has been carrying the princess for more than 11 hours. Though both of them stopped for 15 minutes to have lunch. Even with the monstrous amount of mana Aditya had, flying for 11 hours while carrying a person put a great strain on his body. Right now his mana was nearly exhausted. His dragon wings were starting to feel slightly heavy. Whenever he flapped his wings, he felt a slight pain in his backbone. He long would have run out of mana, if he had not eaten mana recovery pills. Aditya moved his left hand to tightly hold Julia's waist while he took out a mana recovery pill from his storage ring. Don't eat any more mana recovery pills. Julia stopped him with a serious look on her face. Why? If Aditya stopped, then their speed would greatly slow down. Do you even remember how many pills you have consumed this entire day? Aditya didn't know what to answer. Rather than saving his mana, he continuously used his mana to use his skills to increase his flight speed. Whenever he was near exhausting his mana, he would take a mana recovery pill that would recover his mana in 15 minutes. The artifact of the Wind Fairy gave him the ability to increase his flight speed, but that wasn't enough. Aditya used his dragon wings, then used the power of the bracelet of Wind Fairy to slightly increase his speed, then occasionally he used lightning dash, which gave him another 100+ boost in his flight speed. Using all these powers at once increased his speed up to 450+. I don't remember how many pills I have consumed so far. But why are you stopping me? Aditya in a tried tone which he tried to hide. Idiot. If you take too many mana recovery pills or any kind of pills, taking too many of them at once is not good for your health. You can end up developing black plague cancer, a special type of parasite that will start you from the inside. Aditya forced a smile and looked at Julia. Hearing her words, he was feeling a little scared. Are you joking? Do I look like I am joking? Julia took a deep breath to calm herself. When she was with Aditya, this bad villain would always find ways to irritate her and make her sure her temper. The pills we alchemists or pill masters make are not perfect. At the end of the day, they are just artificial products that cannot be compared with natural products. Taking too many pills has many side effects. Such as developing cancer like the Black Plague. Dangerous diseases like the flashing cold, skeleton madness, hex fatigue, transmutation cramps, aura madness, and many more can. I always thought that cultivators cannot get any diseases. The term cultivation always has been associated with immortality. Of course not. As you keep progressing through higher orders, your body, your soul, and everything about you keep getting stronger and stronger. But that does not mean that you're immune to diseases. Look, the diseases that I am talking about are not normal diseases. We cultivators will never be affected by normal diseases. But there are hundreds of diseases which are developed naturally or either were made by some mad evil people that can only infect cultivators. Taking more than 5 mana recovery pills every day puts you at the risk of developing Black Plague. And today you have consumed more than 24 mana recovery pills. Even if you have the blood of the Heavenly Crimson Dragon, the Black Plague won't spare you. So from next time, don't take more than 5 pills unless you're in a life and death situation. Alright, I promise, your husband will be careful in the future. How many times I will have to tell you, I am not your wife. Aditya's suffering ended soon as he saw a medium-sized city in the distance. The city was built on the top of a 40 meters high mountain. Let's spend the night in his city. Given how fast Aditya traveled for 11 hours, he currently was only 300 kilometers away from the Nyland Kingdom. Currently, they were in a small kingdom that was located on the borders of the Eastern Kingdom and the Nyland Kingdom. In this region, there were more than 20 small kingdoms. Each kingdom regularly fought each other to gain more land and resources. But in front of the Nyland, Eastern, and the Nepika Kingdom, these kingdoms were nothing. Using fake identities that Aditya had made for Julia and himself, both of them quickly entered the city. The guards were half sleeping while drinking alcohol. Just from seeing the condition of the city, it was clear that the city was a hub of criminals. The guards were allowing any random person to enter the city as long as they paid 1 gold. While walking on the streets, Julia held Aditya's hand, seeing so many men staring at her. Don't think much, this princess is only holding your hand to get not separated from you. Aditya cautiously looked around. He can see that Julia's beauty, even though they were in disguise, had attracted the eyes of hundreds of men who looked more thugs and addicts. Around 70% of the population was involved in some kind of criminal activity. The soldiers and the guards were considered dogs that can be bought with money. As for the rest 30%, they were the poor and the lowest class people that suffered from the bullying of the criminals. Even the governor of this city himself had multiple bandit groups that robbed travelers. Here where this, unable to handle the stares of other men at her, Aditya took out a black cloak and put it around her. He used the hood to hide her body face. Julia obediently wore the black cloak. But little did Aditya know that his little action had attracted the attention of some criminals. It looks like this man has a storage ring on him. To normal people, a storage ring was very expensive. Even the cheapest ring cost more than 100 gold coins, while the princes of the storage ring could go up to 100,000 gold coins, which were 10,000 royal gold coins. The ring that Aditya had was given by late King Ahmed. The ring had 25 meters of space in it, which was more than enough. Boss, the woman beside him also looks hot. Should we attack them? No. I can't sense their cultivation rank. It means both of their cultivation should be in second order. Trying to attack them directly would only get us killed. So what should we do? For now, let's follow them. Since they are second-order cultivators, I think both of them should have some good stuff. Click. Welcome Blue Raspberry Inn. Are you here to stay? The receptionist was a young man who had a vertical scar on his forehead. The young man was about Aditya's age. He had short brown hair and tan skin. Yes, we need 1 room and also dinner. The young man looked a little excited when looking at Julia. But seeing her average face, he soon lost interest. 1 room would cost 100 gold. As for dinner, it depends on what you two order. 100 gold coins for 1 night stay. Are you crazy? Just look at your inn. This place is old, shabby, broken, cracked, and spider webs are everywhere. Julia couldn't control her anger anymore. Just like she had described, this inn was in very bad shape. Leave if you don't have any money. I don't care. But let me remind you, it's already 1 o'clock, all the inns in the city are closed by now. If you want to stay, you will have to pay 100 gold coins. Aditya, let's leave. I would rather stay in the wild. Julia was also extremely stubborn. Watson would usually deal with these kinds of pests and would never allow this kind of person to even come into her sight. Seeing both of them were about to leave, the young man's face turned ugly as he stood up and shouted. Who said you could leave? What else do you want? This time, Aditya leaked a little bit of his killing intent, making the young man sweat as he felt like he was being preyed on by a wild dragon. The outside forest is filled with magical beasts. I heard there are even peak 3rd order magical beasts roaming in the forest. It wouldn't be safe for you to live in the wild. Aditya coldly smiled as he looked at the young man. Thank you for your kind words. How can Aditya not see that this young man was just trying to scar them and make them stay at this inn? Let go. After exiting the inn, Aditya and Julia decided to first find a restaurant to have dinner. Why did you stop? Julia asked, seeing Aditya suddenly stop walking. Because someone has been following us. Please forgive me. I swear I will never show my face in this city. A man who was wearing cheap and torn clothes kneeled before the man wearing a black cloak that covered his body. You're the type of person who will kneel before the stronger and bully the weak. Give me a good solid reason why I should let you live. I will take care of the children in the orphanage. Orphanage, ha ha ha. Aditya coldly smiled and then glanced at the 21 children standing 20 meters away and staring at Aditya in a mix of fear and gratitude. You used those children to run your business. Just die. Aditya instantly burned the man who was kneeling before him to ash using the crimson flame. You shouldn't have killed that man in front of the children. What if your action traumatizes them? Julia said as she looked at the group of 21 children standing 20 meters away from them. Long story cut, after exiting the inn, some thugs followed them. Aditya and Julia took some time to deal with the thugs and attacked their base, where they found 21 children being locked in a cage. The children's age varied from 7 to 15. There were 13 girls and 8 boys. The power of these gangsters was just too low to give Aditya any experience points. Now what should we do with the children? Julia asked. Leaving these children in this city would be extremely cruel. Sooner or later, another group of thugs will capture them and sell them as slaves. Aditya glanced at the group of children and sighed. All of their bodies were severely malnourished. I have no idea. As much as I wish to send these children back to the Eastern Kingdom, the distance is just too far away. Leaving them here would be the same as abandoning them to die. Are you going to abandon us? Brother, what are you doing? From the group of children, a 15-year-old boy stepped forward. Julia and Aditya looked at the young malnourished and underdeveloped boy with blue hair and blue eyes. The boy was wearing dirty old clothes to cover his body. His face and body were covered in dirt. Do you sense it? Aditya nodded in response. He is still at the beginner phase. The mana in his body is too low. Hearing their conversation, the boy with blue hair was stunned, as he had never told anyone, not even his little sister, that he has learned to cultivate. Aditya glanced at the boy and smiled. What's your name? My name is Leo Gallagher. The boy looked a little nervous. He was trying his best to reply without showing any nervousness. I have an idea. Why don't we just send a message to one of my governors? They send some men to take these children away from the city. That would take too much time. Besides, we're going to leave tomorrow. Maybe we can hire a group of adventurers to send these children back to the Eastern Kingdom. If Aditya and Julia leave, the children will have no security. While Aditya and Julia were discussing, the boy took a deep breath and then did something which shocked everyone. Master. What? Julia and Aditya stared at the blue-haired boy who was kneeling on the ground with his head lowered. What are you doing? There is no need for you to kneel before me. Master, please take me as your student. Aditya took a deep breath to calm himself. He only knew the basics of cultivation. Unlike cultivators, Aditya was more like a player that constantly leveled up and became stronger. So how can he take a student when he doesn't even know much about cultivation? The thought of taking a student never crossed his mind. Why do you want to become my student? The children, Julia and Aditya, stared at the boy with blue hair. Even in the darkness of night, the boy's blue pupils seemed to shine in determination. I want revenge. I know Master is very strong. I want Master to teach me and help me with my revenge. Aditya felt helpless. He looked at Julia as if asking for some help. Why are you looking at me like that? I don't know much about cultivation. I don't even have enough knowledge to teach anyone. Julia remained silent before looking at the boy's blue eyes. After a moment, Aditya understood that his boy only wanted to become his student so that he can get his revenge. I refuse to accept any students. Tell me, Leo, how desperate are you to get your revenge? Leo stared at those crimson eyes that were shining even in the dark. He knew it was those eyes that can help him. I will do anything. I am ready to become a slave if it means getting my revenge. Brother, what are you saying? Aditya looked at another girl who exactly had blue hair and blue eyes as Leo. The girl was about 13 years old. I will give you an offer. If you agree to work for me and never betray me, then I will make you strong enough to get your revenge. Not just revenge, I will make you rich enough to live on mountain golds. You will never have to worry about food, shelter, clothes, or being bullied again. Do you? I accept. Even before Aditya could finish his words, Leo accept his offer. Twice, betraying me will be worse than living in hell. Saying that, Aditya released a bit of his killing intent on Leo. Leo's face instantly turned pale as he felt like he was standing before the god of slaughter. I accept. Leo gritted his teeth. He was ready to do anything for revenge. Under Julia's gaze, Aditya put a star-shaped talisman on Leo's forehead. The talisman shined before the golden light entered his forehead. This contract will prevent you from betraying me. In the future, if you do anything to betray me, your soul will be ripped apart and you will die. After saying that, Aditya bit his right index finger. Under the shocked gaze of all the children, a drop of golden blood appeared. In the darkness of the night, the golden blood seems to be shining, radiating golden light. Take this. A golden drop of blood fell on Leo's forehead. The next moment, a red-crimson aura surrounded Leo. The crimson light from his body brightened the entire warehouse. Ah! Leo couldn't help but scream in pain as he rolled on the ground. What did you do to him? His little sister stepped out and angrily looked at Aditya, thinking that this man had done something bad to her big brother. Little sister, you can relax. In a minute you will know how lucky your big brother was. Hearing her words, the little sister calmed down a little bit and impatiently waited. Her eyes were already red from seeing her brother suffering this much. Just like she said, 1 minute later, the crimson light around Leo started dimming down. Leo suddenly opened his eyes and stood on his feet. As the crimson light around him started disappearing, everyone was shocked by seeing the changes on Leo's body. First of all, this Leo looked completely different. His height had increased to 5 feet 3 inches. The malnourished body of his had disappeared. There were very small light red dragon scales covering his arms, chest, neck, throat, collarbone, and some parts of his stomach. Even though Leo's body was still covered in dirt, there was an aura of nobility around him. Congratulations on becoming the 2nd or maybe the 26th Dragonian. How do you feel? Aditya asked with a smile on his face. Instead of answering, Leo sat on his knees and looked at Aditya with endless gratitude written in his eyes. Mas, no my king, I don't know how will I ever repay you for this kind and generous gift. Only Leo can tell how strong he had become. Now he felt he can easily kill those thugs and criminals that regularly bullied him. You have reached beginner 2nd order. Now you have the power to defeat anyone in 2nd order. Though you will need some training and maybe learn some fighting techniques. Now that Leo had become Dragonian, he could sense a connection with him. My king, if it's not too much, can I also ask for another drop of golden blood for my sister? Knowing the great benefits of a drop of golden blood, Leo wanted his little sister to also become a Dragonian. No, she is too young. Julia was having some thoughts about teaching this little girl. Alright, let's leave this place. Leo, you can take all the money these people had with you. After leaving the abandoned warehouse, Aditya and Julia, fortunately, found an inn. At first, the inn owner refused to let him in, but after threatening to kill him, he became an obedient puppy. Since the inn only had a few rooms, Aditya and Julia had to share a single room while the children stayed in the other 3 rooms. Aditya, I think that boy also realized your intention. What intention? Aditya pretended to play dumb and asked. If you had accepted the boy as a student, there was nothing you could have taught him as a teacher as your knowledge in cultivation is too low. But by letting the boy become a part of the Eastern Kingdom, he made him stronger by giving him the golden blood. Others might think that you're taking away that boy's freedom, but in reality, you only helped him. Lying on the floor, Aditya couldn't help but smile. He felt pity for the boy. Those blue eyes had touched his heart. Among the 21 children, only Leo had the will and determination to survive and become stronger. Even if Aditya hadn't helped him, sooner or later, Leo would have taken matters into his own hand and might have killed the thugs. By the way, why I am lying on the cold floor? I am the one who paid for this room. So as master, I should be the one who gets to sleep on the bed. Humph. If the inn had an extra room, I never would have let you sleep in this room. Who knows what a pervert like you would do to me in the middle of the night. Thank you for all the golden tickets. Next morning. The morning sunlight fell on her eyes through the window. Feeling discomfort, the alchemy goddess opened her eyes. The first thing that she saw was the sleeping face of the pervert Dragon King lying next to her. You pervert. Bang. Aditya fell to the floor from the sudden and unexpected kick from his wife, who was more like a bully. Ouch. That hurts. Why did you do that? Aditya rubbed his stomach while shamelessly exposing his abs. Why are you sleeping on my bed? I was starting to feel cold, and besides, sleeping on the floor is no fun, so I took a little space since the bed was very big. Aditya innocently explained. After 11 hours of flying, beating the thugs, and rescuing the children, he was very tired. He didn't even realize it when he moved onto the bed and slept there. Next, if you do that, I will bit you to death. The kitten fiercely glared at him as if someone had invaded its territory. Sigh. You know we will be sleeping in the same room when we go to your parents' house. Hearing this, her face flushed for a second before she glared back at him. Even if we sleep in the same room, I never said that I was going to allow you to sleep on my bed. Letting you sleep on the floor is already too much. If you ever cross the line, I will never let you sleep in my room. Aditya looked at her long legs, which were exposed as she slept in her cute pajamas. He has to admit, touching those lined, slender and smooth legs will feel very satisfying. Sooner or later, this little bunny will be eaten by this dragon. What did you say? Feeling his eyes, Julia regretted wearing short pajamas. She quickly covered her legs with the blanket. Nothing. Aditya got up and went to the bathroom to wash his face. Alright, listen to me, Leo, the adventurers I have hired you will take you to the capital of Eastern Kingdom. After entering the Eastern Kingdom, if you ever find yourself in trouble, just show this letter to the guards. They will take you to meet the nearest governor. The letter Aditya gave Leo had his dragon scale in it. In that letter, he had asked Watson to look after the children and also give cultivation resources to Leo. By the time Aditya and Julia went to bed, it was already past midnight. Aditya and Julia slept very late and also woke up late. After waking up, they had breakfast and then bought some clothes for everyone. Adventurers that I have hired are all second-order cultivators. The journey will take at least 1 week time. Make sure to use the money I gave to buy food supplies. Lastly, always stay cautious. Cautious. Leo nodded his head. Then we will take our leave. Hey. How long till we reach the kingdom of Nyland? After leaving Leo, Aditya and Julia have been flying for another 5 hours straight. They only had a few hours of daylight. Princess, we have flying at full speed for 5 hours now. You should see the Nyland border anytime soon. And just as Aditya said, after 3 minutes, the Nyland border and fortress came into their view. After another hour of flying, Aditya and Julia reached the nearest city. Being the strongest kingdom in the eastern region of the dying Al continent, the Nyland kingdom was the only kingdom that had teleportation arrays. Each big city had a teleportation array connecting them. So this is North River City. From the sky, Aditya and Julia could see the entire city. Just like any other city in this world, the North River City was also reinforced with high walls with guards constantly patrolling the city walls. The city is very bigger and had over 2 million people of different races living in it. Let's enter. With fake identities, Aditya and Julia successfully managed to enter the city and made their way to the teleportation array. Just like Aditya, hundreds of thousands of people from all big and small kingdoms in the eastern region traveled to this city to use the teleportation array. The teleportation array would take everyone to the capital, and from there, using the grand teleportation array, one can teleport to different regions of the dying Al continent. At the center of the city, more than 10,000 people were standing in lines. Whether it was noble or duke from other kingdoms, everyone regardless of their identity had to stand in the line and wait for their turn. How many people? 2. Which city? To the capital. Alright. VIP ticket or normal ticket? This is the first time we are actually using the teleportation array. So can you please tell us the difference between a VIP ticket and a normal ticket? Aditya asked the receptionist. To stand in lines, people had to get tickets. Julia and Aditya were also here to tickets. Using a VIP ticket, you won't have to stand in line. But be warned, the VIP tickets are very expensive. Alright, give me VIP tickets. The receptionist lady glanced at Aditya and Julia in surprise. Looking at their clothes, they didn't really think that they would be rich enough to afford VIP tickets. Alright. I will need both of your names. The receptionist didn't change her expression even for a small second. She always had a professional smile on her face. After telling her their fake names, the receptionist took out 2 jade slips and wrote their names on them. Here. Take this. 2,000 gold coins. After paying the money, Aditya took the jade slips. The jade slips shined in bright green light when he took them in his hand. Next, while Aditya took Julia to stand in the line. After a minute of standing, one of the guards came noticing the green glow on the jade slip. Sir, can you please show me both of your tickets? Please come with me. All the guards were strictly ordered to behave respectfully and politely to everyone. Under the envious gazes of thousands of people who were standing in the long and never-ending line, Aditya and Julia were taken to the teleportation array. At the center, there was a large rune circle. The rune circle was about 50 meters big. The circle was made from 4 big circles of runes. Aditya observed the runes for a second and felt dizzy. He realized this rune circle was at least 4th star. At his current level, just looking at these complex runes felt like his head was getting dizzy. The teleportation array is going to start in the next 10 seconds. The array will take everyone to the capital. Those who do not wish to go there, please step down from the teleportation array. 10, 9, 8. Aditya and Julia looked at each other and smiled. He took her right hand. He can feel with each passing second she was getting more and more excited and also impatient. It looks like she couldn't wait to see her parents. 3, 2, 1, a 50 meters big green circular barrier formed around the rune circle. The next moment, Aditya felt the space around him is being twisted and bent. Welcome to the capital of Nyland Kingdom, the Adrapur city. In the northwest region of the dying Al continent, there was a city called Apogale City. Apogale City was a part of the Kingdom of Echo Dominion. Kingdom of Echo Dominion was one of the biggest and most strongest kingdoms on the entire continent of the dying isle. Welcome to Apogale City. Finally I have returned home. Like an excited child, Julia pulled Aditya's right hand. She ignored the words of the guards and kept jumping and running here and there. This was her birthplace. This was the city where she was born. How can she not be excited after returning to her home city after such a long time? Slow down, Julia. Since both Aditya and Julia were in disguise, no one recognized them. The resident of Apogale City was very familiar with the one and only daughter of the honored noble household. While walking on the streets of Apogale City, Aditya took some time to observe the city. The city was built more advanced than the cities in the eastern region of the continent. Aditya had heard that the people in this region are most rich and cultivators were more powerful when compared to other regions. Due to this, the northwest region is considered the capital or most important place of the dying Al continent. It is said that if the kingdoms of this region wanted, they easily could have conquered the entire continent given how strong their military powers is. It wouldn't be wrong to say that the entire continent mostly revolved around the northwest region. When compared to other regions, the northwest region was more prosperous and had more population density. Around 50% of the continent's population lived in this region. Julia, slow down. Julia didn't listen to Aditya at all. She excitedly runs all the way to her home. Standing in front of the big mansion, Julia's entire body trembled slightly with overwhelming emotions. She still remembers the day when she left this mansion with her butler Watson. That day was one of the saddest days of her life. But now looking back, she didn't have a trace of regret in her heart. She found someone special. Someone who can make her feel safe and secure. Shall we go in? Aditya asked with a gentle smile. Julia nodded, feeling very warm in her heart. Stop, who are you? Sigh. Here we go again. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Stop. Without permission, no one is allowed to enter the mansion of Lord Honored. Aditya was secretly a little surprised after sensing that both guards actually were peak third-order cultivators. Did the two of you forget who I am? Hearing the familiar voice, both guards' bodies trembled as quickly got on their knees the very next moment. How can they not recognize this voice when they have been hearing her voice for years now? Even though Julia left for a few years, everyone in the castle still remembered her. While Aditya looked at the huge castle in front of him. The castle was the grandest and most luxurious castle he has seen so far. 11 massive, square towers form a protective barrier all around the castle and are connected by lower, thick walls made of yellow stone. Elegant windows are scattered thinly around the walls in seemingly perfect symmetry, along with symmetric crenellations for archers and artillery. Are you not going to let us in? Please accept our apologizes. A great gate with tall wooden doors was opened up for Aditya and Julia to enter. Just as Julia stepped foot inside the castle, a certain someone who was sitting at the dining table sensed the familiar aura. My child has returned. Boom. While Julia led Aditya on a small path to arrive in front of a second door to the castle. Before she can push open the door, a figure opened the door faster than Aditya can react and hugged Julia. My child. I missed you so much. Under the moonlight, Aditya was shocked seeing the woman that literally looked like the mature version of Julia. Just like her, the woman also had long purple hair. Julia's mother was wearing a black long dress that perfectly hugged her curves. Compared to Julia, the woman's body was more developed and her figure was more seductive and breathtaking. Her breast and back were bigger than Julia's. While Julia had the charm of a beautiful virgin goddess, her mother had the mature aura that gave her a unique charm. While the mother and daughter hugged each other and looked lost in their own little world, Aditya's eyes fell on the man standing 5 meters away from him. The man was looking at Aditya like he was looking at his biggest enemy. He must be Julia's father. Julia's father was 6 feet tall man with short black hair. The man had a muscular body. Standing in front of this man was like standing in front of thousands of enemies. The way this man looked at Aditya was like he owed him millions of gold coins. Why is he looking at him with so much hostility? I never even met him in my entire life. Aditya also realized one thing: he cannot sense the men's cultivation. This means that Julia's father was at least a fourth order, or maybe he was a fifth order cultivator. The man looked like a savage animal who couldn't wait to rip Aditya in half. He had this wild aura around him that unconsciously made others feel afraid of him. After a long hug, Julia noticed her dear father was standing behind her mother. Dad. The wild savage lion melted down and became a cute puppet in front of his daughter. Aditya was shocked seeing how this man changed. One moment he was fiercely staring at Aditya like he was going to kill him, the next moment, he is hugging his daughter like it was the most gentle thing in the whole world. Why I am receiving glares? Julia's father angrily glared at him, and the next second his expression softened as a happily smiled while patting his daughter's head. My daughter, father has missed you so much. Next time please don't leave without informing Papa. Julia's mother observed Aditya for an entire minute. The more she looked at her son-in-law, the more satisfied she looked. Right now Aditya wasn't using his disguise, so her mother was able to see his real face. My apologies for the late introduction. I am Sophie Honored. You can just call me mother. And this is Adam Honored, Julia's father. There is no need to apologize, auntie. My name is Aditya Bainath. Aditya bowed his head while introducing himself. Meanwhile, after hugging his daughter, Adam looked like he has been satisfied. He walked in front of Aditya. So it was because of you that my daughter left home. Kid, it looks like we will need to talk in private. Honey, you can talk with Aditya later. They just arrived. Both of them just be tired. Sophie gently smiled at Aditya. Please come in. Wow. What a gentle mother. If only Julia was gentle as her mother. Aditya looked at Julia. She seems to have guessed his thoughts. She just coldly glared at him, which again made him sigh. I guess she has inherited a part of her father's fierceness. Aditya was a little shocked seeing a man who exactly looked like Watson standing before him and bowing his head. Aditya, let me introduce you to Walter. He is Watson's twin brother. Good evening, young master. Aditya nodded his head in acknowledgement. Aditya, why don't you take a shower and get changed before joining us for dinner? Since my daughter has returned with her fiancé, I will make a feast tonight. For a moment Aditya was dazed by how kind Julia's mother was. She was the perfect wife material. Even though she was the wife of the Duke, she was very humble, kind, and gentle. Knowing that you were going to come, I already have prepared a bedroom room for you. Walter, please show Aditya his bedroom. Young master, please come with me. Aditya and Walter left. I suddenly remembered I have some work to do. I will be back before dinner. Before Adam could take the first step, Sophie grabbed his shoulder. Honey, since I am going to make a feast, why don't you help me? Knowing that his wife had already seen through his intention of meeting Aditya alone, Adam could only follow her to the kitchen. Where is Zach? Julia asked while looking around. Your little brother already has gone to sleep. Should I send someone to wake him up? Sophie asked her daughter. No. I can just wait till tomorrow and surprise him. Mom, I am also going to my room. Sophie and Adam walked to the kitchen. In the house of Honored, Sophie was responsible for cooking. No maid or servant was allowed to cook for her family. She felt as a mother and a wife, it was her responsibility to cook. Young master, do you mind telling me a little about my brother? It has been some time since I last saw him. Currently, Walter and Aditya were walking in the corridor. Watson is doing well. It was because of Watson that I can manage my kingdom. My brother always has been talented when it came to management work. By the way, does Watson have a family here? Unfortunately no. Watson swore to follow Lady Julia when she was born. I and Watson have been working as a butler for more than a century now. While I got married about 90 years ago, Watson stayed single. Just like Watson, Walter was also a mid-second order cultivator. It seems both brothers did not have much talent in cultivation. Young master, this is your room. Thank you, Walter. Young master doesn't have to thank me. By the way, the next bedroom is Lady Julia's room. If there is nothing, I will take my leave now. If you need anything then just call me. Seeing Walter leave, Aditya immediately did not enter his room. He instead stared at the room next to his. Did Julia's mother purposely arrange my room next to her daughter's? Click. After entering his bedroom, Aditya took out 2 pairs of clothes and put them on the bed. His bedroom had a double bed, white cushions, a light red carpet laid on the floor, a table, a wardrobe, and a couch next to the window. Grabbing the white towel, he entered the bathroom to take a long shower. After traveling for 2 days, he was finally getting time to take a long and relaxing shower. What do you think of Aditya? Adam asked as he cut vegetables for his wife. Because of his fierce and wild nature, Adam was given the nickname Wild Lion. If outsiders saw that one of the strongest duke on the continent, the man who was famously known as the Wild Lion, was cutting vegetables for his wife, they would end up having a heart attack. I think he is suitable for our daughter. Everyone makes mistakes. We can't just judge this Aditya based on his past actions. In just 2 months, that boy created chaos in the eastern region. Building a 3-tier kingdom in just 2 months. In my eyes, there is no one who is more suitable than Aditya. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Bad Wolf, what are you doing next to my room? Julia and Aditya came out of their rooms at the same time and saw each other. That is my room. Aditya innocently replied while pointing towards his room. Aditya's long blue hair was slightly wet and messy. He was wearing pants and a white shirt. Julia couldn't help but feel dazed staring at his otherworldly handsome face. Julia has seen men who are even more handsome than him, but there is something unique about him that made her hard to resist this bad man. Maybe in others' eyes, he is not the best handsome-looking man out there, but in her eyes, this hooligan was the best-looking man in the whole world. Why are you looking so nervous? Your face is slightly red. He took a step forward and asked as he brought his face near her. Thump. Thump. Aditya looked at her rosy lips. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, making her look even cuter. Unlike normal times, tonight she had tied her hair in a bun, exposing her seductive nape. Just looking at her nape, Aditya felt his throat was getting dry. Tonight her purple pupils seemed to have a magnetic shine on them, making him feel like wanting to stare at her forever. While looking at each other's eyes, Aditya brought his face forward. Both of them seemed to be lost in their romantic world, not caring about the outside world. Just when their faces were only 10 inches from each other, a sweet and gentle voice that felt like a loud thunderous roar at that moment woke up them. Both of you should stop standing there and come for dinner. Both of their bodies jerked up as they moved away. Julia's entire face flushed red, while Aditya, being the thick-skinned and shameless, he looked at Sophie and nodded his head. We will be there in a minute. Meanwhile, Sophie couldn't help but smile. There was an extra touch of satisfaction in her smile. There is no way an experienced woman like her would mistake what she just saw. Hee. Did something made you happy? Adam asked, seeing his wife smiling happily. It's secret. Sophie mischievous winked her right eye at Adam. Adam couldn't stop himself from smiling, as this was the wink that initially captured his heart in his younger days. If Sophie had not accepted him, the poor man still would have been a virgin, given how fierce and wild he is. But in front of his wife, he is like a tamed cat. If people saw the wild lion of the kingdom of Echo Dominion acting like a tamed cat, they would call him a chicken. But Adam had no problem being called a chicken. In the house, he always listened to his wife's words. He had no problem listening to his wife's words, as he doing it out of love. While other dukes had multiple wives to produce multiple heirs, Adam on the other hand feared that marrying someone else would break his family. On the other hand, an entire minute passed, no one said anything. Aditya gave her time to calm down. He knew if he said something at this moment, he would be labeled as the big bad bully. Shall we go? Aditya asked gently, to which the alchemy goddess replied with a small nod. Both of them quietly walked through the long corridor. After reaching the dining table, Aditya was expecting to see a big dining table. But Sophie and Adam were sitting on a small table big enough for 4 or 5 people. My mom thinks that it's more enjoyable to eat food in a small. It's easier to talk with family members and is more comfortable. If Adam is hosting any gathering or party, or some big nobles are coming to visit him, only then the small table would be replaced with a big long dining table. Aditya nodded while approaching the dining table. The more time he spent in this castle, the more he realized just how much of a perfect wife Julia's mother, Sophie, is. While he has been expecting to be looked down on by her parents given the huge gap between them, they were totally different from what he had expected. This made Aditya very relieved. Though he still cannot understand why Adam is always so hostile to me. Walter, have you eaten? Julia asked as she sat opposite facing her mother. This humble servant has eaten a few hours ago. Thank you for asking. While it's considered rude and disrespectful for servants, maids, and butlers to have their food before their master, Sophie did the opposite. Behind Julia, Aditya also walked toward the dining table. As he approached the dining table, once again he found Adam glaring at him like he was looking at his biggest enemy. Aditya sat next to Julia as Sophie started serving the food. Walter, you can leave us alone. Understood, milady. After giving a small bow, Walter retreated without making any noise. For some reason, after spending a little time here, Aditya was starting to feel that compared to Watson, Walter was a better butler. Walter looked, sounded, and acted more professionally. After Walter the family along, Sophie turned her attention to the man whom she already considered her son-in-law. Aditya wasn't trying to pretend to be polite. In front of them he didn't have the aura of a ruler. In his previous life, Aditya has always followed the rule of not bringing politics into family matters. He was not to show off or flex his achievements. Aditya was doing the same in this life. Alright, let's start eating. Aditya, you can go first. He nodded his head as he looked at the small piece of magical beast's meat that has been fired. Just from the appetizing aroma, he knew that every dish on the table would be very delicious. Using the pair of chopsticks, he put the meat in his mouth. How is it? Sophie gently asked with a smile. It's really good. Humph. Of course, it would be good. The food was cooked by my wife after all. Adam snorted and also started eating. Oh. What do we have here? Hee. It looks like just like the daughter, the father is also a tsundere. Now I know from whom Julia got her tsundere personality. From the corner of his eyes, he glanced at Julia, who was elegantly having her food, but on the other hand, her father's eating was far from elegance. It seems this tsundere personality runs deep in the honored family bloodline. If it wasn't for Miss Sophie's teaching, Julia's personality might have become more fierce and wild just like her father. Just imagining Julia with a wild and savage personality like her father, made him shiver. Aditya, why don't tell us a little bit about your kingdom? I heard that the Eastern kingdom has been rapidly expanding and growing. Sophie started a conversation with Aditya while Julia and Adam remained quiet and ate their food. Occasionally she and Adam would make a comment or two. What about the merit system that you implemented in your kingdom? It was Adam who asked the question. Adam and Sophie had been keeping an eye on the changes going on in the Eastern Kingdom. When Aditya came up with the merit point system, Adam and Sophie were greatly shocked as no kingdom in the world had adopted this kind of system. In my opinion, the merit point system will greatly boost your kingdom's military in short term. But in long term, I am not sure about that. Adam wanted to see if Aditya would know what problem he was talking about. If Uncle is talking about corruption, then yes, this will become a problem in the future. No matter what place, time, or era it is, corruption will always exist. Aditya said the latter part as a reference to all the corruption in his country and other foreign countries. Corruption can bring a nation to its knees by draining its wealth. Adam and Sophie were secretly a little surprised given how calm Aditya was. Since you look so calm, I assume that you already have a plan to prevent corruption in your kingdom. Aditya nodded his head in response. As the king, I will need eyes to oversee the events happening in every corner of my kingdom. Adam and Sophie what he meant by eyes. Aditya was calm because he had eyes all over his kingdom even though he was away from his kingdom. The magents were doing their jobs pretty well. Every corrupt official was being monitored and then publicly executed for corruption, which planted the seed of fear in other officials' hearts and kept them away from betraying the kingdom. Even though he wouldn't admit it, but Adam was already very impressed with Aditya. Aditya was so young yet he was so talented. Okay. Let me ask you this, what would you do if one of your duke became powerful enough to even threaten you? Aditya calmly ate another piece of magical beast-fired meat and looked at Adam with a small smile. It depends. If the duke is someone that I trust fully, then letting him become powerful is not a harmful thing. But if the duke is someone who has the intention of going against the royal order and going against the king, then I have the means to deal with them before they could even think of taking any actions against me. Aditya has made all of the governors accept the contract. With the contract, if they even think of going against him, the contract will rip their souls. Also, Aditya was thinking of giving his governors a drop of his blood and turning them into his Dragonians. Even if the whole world turns against him, his Dragonians will never even think of betraying him. Aditya knew for a fact that his Dragonians will become the main and strongest power point of his kingdom. Let's stop with all this political nonsense and enjoy our dinner together. Julia, how have you been doing in the Eastern Kingdom? Hearing the question, Aditya's body turned stiff. He nervously glanced at Julia. Aditya is not sure how Adam would react when he hears that his daughter has been working as a maid for 2 years. Let's stop with all this political nonsense and enjoy our dinner together. Julia, how have you been doing in the Eastern Kingdom? Hearing the question, Aditya's body turned stiff. He nervously glanced at Julia. Aditya is not sure how Adam would react when he hears that his daughter has been working as a maid for 2 years. I have been doing fine. Living in the Eastern Kingdom has taught me many things. I was able to meet new kinds of people and learn many new things. At first, I guess I had some trouble adapting living to a new place. But with time, the Eastern Kingdom became my second home. As a mother, Sophie can see just how much her daughter has matured as a person. When Julia left a few years ago, her father wanted to destroy the Eastern Kingdom to bring her daughter back. But Sophie convinced Adam that their daughter needs to face this alone. Julia has been living under her parents' protection her whole life. She needed real-life experience to mature as a person. At first, she hated and cursed her fate. Whenever she looked at the drunken face of the man who was her husband in name, she always got angry. She hated every moment, every second of working seeing his drunken face. It made her sick. But one day the man she looked down upon changed. It was like the man had shed his skin and become a person. His personality, his behavior, his way of thinking, everything about him changed. Though his face remained the same, his personality had completely changed. Here, eat this fish. I can't finish it. Under the stunned gaze of Sophie and Adam, their daughter gave Aditya the fired fish. Aditya accepted the fish and continued eating. The way she just causally gave the fired fish to Aditya looked very natural. Aditya, do you have any plans of returning to your family one day? Everyone at the table stopped eating and stared at Aditya. This question was a serious and sensitive question. Aditya has never shown any look of pain or anger for being kicked out of the royal family. If he had not been kicked out, then he would have become the king of the strongest kingdom in the whole world. In the past, Julia and Watson also have thought of asking the same question to the man who achieved so much in 2 months. They wanted to know how he felt being kicked out of his royal family. Aditya put the chopsticks on the table and looked at Sophie. The expression on his face was cold and there was a trace of sadness in his eyes. No. I have no plans of returning to the royal family. I was abandoned and thrown away so far away from home. Besides, I don't think my parents would be interested in raising a child that couldn't activate dragon bloodline. That's not true. You have awakened your bloodline. Not just any bloodline, heavenly dragon bloodline. In fact, it's the other way around. It's your parents who are not worthy of calling you their child. Heavenly dragon bloodline. Adam and Sophie stared at each other in a deep state of shock. How many dragons in this whole world had a heavenly dragon bloodline? The answer is no one. Not even the Dragon King had a heavenly bloodline. Meanwhile, the Alchemy goddess, the future queen of the Dragon King, was fuming in anger. Yes, she hated the Aditya that drank alcohol all day long. But she also felt sad, angry, and pity for Aditya who was thrown from the top of the mountain to a wasteland. If I ever see your parents, I will slap them to death. The Dragon King smiled as his heart felt warm seeing the goddess getting angry for him. This showed just how much the alchemy goddess has come to care about him. Calm down. Aditya patted her right shoulder. Aditya, I apologize for asking you such questions. Sophie realized that she shouldn't have asked this kind of question at the dining table. Auntie, there is no need to apologize. I simply don't care. Julia looked at Aditya and then continued eating. She now had lost the appetite to continue eating. By the way, uncle, I have a request. Adam put the rice bowl down. What is it, kid? Actually, I am a rune master. I was hoping if I can borrow some books, advanced rune books. Sophie and Adam were once again surprised. Oh, you know rune spells? Actually, Aditya is a 2-star rune master. During the war with the Zulux dynasty, his rune spells played a big role. The future queen looked very proud when she said those words. I didn't know you were so talented. Runes were the same as solving mathematics. Rune masters were very difficult to produce. Even the House of Honored only had one 3-star rune master and a few 2-star rune masters. I am not that talented. I have learned a bit under King Ahmed. Aditya lied since the previous king, his adopted father didn't know a thing about runes. But it was the only way he could answer how he learned about runes when he always was busy drinking. Kid, I have a 3-star rune master working for me. If you want I can order him to teach you. If you wish to read books on runes, you can just head to the library. Aditya noticed the hostility in Adam's eyes has decreased significantly. It seems the man was beginning to accept him as his son-in-law. Thank you, uncle. You can just call us father and mother. PTTTT, cough, cough. Alright, you can continue to call us uncle and aunt. Seeing him looking so nervous, Sophie did not pursue this matter further. Now that our daughter has returned, it won't be long before the news spread throughout the kingdom. Should we take this chance to announce our daughter's engagement to Aditya? Aditya was expecting Julia to protest but instead, she lowered her head and continued eating. He can see that her ears were red. Isn't it too fast? Everyone would expect the future husband of the alchemy goddess and the most beautiful woman on the continent to be a person with high status and social standing. Kid, what are you talking about? Are you playing with my daughter? Aditya felt the killing intent in his eyes increasing. Calm down, dear. Aditya, once the news of our daughter returning home spreads, many nobles and kings will come with marriage proposals for their sons. Even when she left home a few years ago, every day many big nobles came to ask for Julia's hand in marriage. Do you understand what that means? Aditya nodded in response. When the news of Aditya being kicked out of the royal family spread, all the people in the continent danced in happiness. Without the royal family backing him up, the contract had no meaning to them. They can have some chances of marrying one of the goddesses. This is what was happening with Julia. By announcing her engagement, even though there is a chance that the honored family might end up offending some people, at least no one will come to ask for our daughter's hand. Of course I understand that by letting your name be known, some jealous people will try to take revenge on you by attacking your kingdom. So for now, we will use a different identity. You will be Aditya, a 2-star rune master whom the princess of the honored family has liked and picked as her future husband. Aditya lacked nothing. He had a heavenly dragon bloodline which meant that as long as he was given time he would reach the 7th order in the far future. Besides having a heavenly dragon bloodline, the way he was developing his kingdom, it won't be long before the Eastern kingdom becomes of the biggest and strongest kingdom on the whole continent. Others might think that Aditya wasn't worthy, but in Sophie and Adam's eyes, he was the worthiest man in the world. Most important of all, their daughter also loved her fiancé, which was the biggest reason why Sophie and Adam, even though he didn't want to, had accepted him. That's perfect. In half-month, Julia's birthday is also coming. I think it would be the perfect time to introduce Aditya as her fiancé. Adam nodded. Even though he didn't want to admit it, but compared to those trash sons of dukes and nobles, Aditya's character was 100 times better. The dinner went on for almost 2 hours as Sophie and Adam continued asking many things to Julia and Aditya. As time passed, Aditya noticed that Adam's hostility toward him was also decreasing, which was a good thing. Kid, if you want to learn from a rune master you better get up early in the morning. Good night, Aditya. Good night, auntie. Mom, I am going to take a look after my lab. Julia was away from home for a few years. She has been dying to see the condition of her lab. Sure, but don't stay up late. While Julia went to her lab, Aditya returned to his bedroom and laid down after wearing his pajamas. Before 15 days, I will have to reach 3rd order. The next day, Aditya woke up very early in the morning. Repeatedly waking up at the same time, he has developed a natural alarming system. Back in his castle, he usually would get up very early in the morning and practice sword arts for an hour or two. The reason Aditya did this was that he sucked at using a sword. Most of his battles were won with agility. In terms of sword skills, Aditya barely comes in the basic mastery category. So every morning, while others slept, he got up and practiced sword arts with some guidance from Watson. After practicing for an hour or two, he would take a cold shower and then practice his rune skills. Being a 2-star rune master, there was a lot of things that Aditya still needed to try. He still wants to try making a mana gathering formation or defense formation and all kinds of stuff. Only by practicing, Aditya can become an expert. After an hour of rune practice, he would have breakfast with Julia, Watson, and his generals. No one would have complained if Aditya did not share his dining table with his generals. But he did that to forge a close bond with everyone. Also, the food tastes extra better when it's shared with other people. After having breakfast, Aditya would assume his role as the Dragon King. He would go through various papers, documents, and all. 90% of his time was always spent in his office. I guess it's not a bad thing to take a break or two. The work was so intense that many times Aditya had to skip sleeping at night. Now finally, after a whole month of endless work, Aditya was finally having a break and time to focus on building himself. Should I just go back to sleep? For some hesitation, Aditya decided to continue practicing his sword skills. Today is difficult. Tomorrow will be even more difficult. But the day after tomorrow is beautiful. Whenever Aditya felt lazy and unmotivated, he would always say these words in his mind. Disciple and hard work were necessary to achieve success in life. After washing up, he changed his clothes and went out of his bedroom. Since it was very early in the morning, the whole castle was very quiet. Without trying to make any noise, Aditya reached the living where he found Walter and the maids cleaning and talking among themselves. Walter noticed Aditya. He walked up to him and slightly bent his body to bow to Aditya. Good morning, young master. Good morning, Walter. Do you usually get up this early? Yes. As the servant of the House of Honored, it is my duty to get up very early in the morning. The maids stopped cleaning and stared at Aditya for a few seconds before they saw Walter's cold glare. The maids quickly resumed their work, but occasionally they would take a peek to look at the face of Miss Julia's fiancé. Young master, do you need anything? To be honest, I am a little surprised to see you wake up this early in the morning. Walter has met many people in his almost 2-century-long old life. In his opinion, Aditya was the most humble and kind young master he has ever met. Walter can kind of understand why his twin brother Watson stayed behind to serve this man. I am used to waking up very early in the morning to practice my sword skills. Walter, can you please show me where the training ground is? Hearing Aditya's words, Walter was kind of stunned. Aditya was only 19 years old. Considering how young he is, he can already be considered a genius for reaching mid-second order. His talent was enough to give him the title of a genius, yet he was waking up very early in the morning just to practice his sword skills. This made Walter respect Aditya from the bottom of his heart. There was countless genius born on the continent, but not everyone had the same determination as Aditya to leave the comfy bed and get up very early in the morning just to practice sword skills. Young master, would you like to train alone or would you like to train with others? Because at this time the soldiers would also get up to train. The soldiers had to wake up at this time and train for several hours before they were given breakfast. To be honest, I am not that good at using swords, so I guess having a guide or partner would greatly help me. Aditya felt a little embarrassed to say these words. If only his past self had not been a lazy person, then Aditya wouldn't have to learn this kind of thing. Alright, come with me, young master. Walter, why are you here? Seeing Walter at the training ground, a man with a red mustache stepped forward. Aditya glanced at the man who stood in front of Walter. The man was 5 feet 9 inches tall, the same height as Aditya. The man had short spiky red hair and a long scar on his right cheek. The man had pointy ears. His body was muscular and he was holding a black greatsword in his right hand. Before I say anything, this is Lady Julia's fiancé. His name is Aditya. Young master wants to spar and wants to learn. The man narrowed his eyes hearing that his man with long blue hair was Lady Julia's fiancé. The news was too sudden even for him. Walter, are you lying? Of course not. Master said that on the upcoming princess's birthday, he will announce the engagement to the whole world. The man took a deep breath and nodded his head. The news was just too sudden for him. What? Hearing Watson's words, the soldiers who were training also stopped. They all looked like they had been struck by a bolt of lightning. Their mouths were wide enough to fit an egg inside. The training ground was similar to the training ground that Aditya had built for his troops to train. Except this one was almost 4 times bigger. There were more than 5,000 soldiers training, sparring against each other. And right now everyone in the training ground was looking at Aditya in a deep state of shock. The princess of honored noble household, the most beautiful woman on the continent, the alchemy goddess, was engaged to a man. The news was just too shocking for them to digest. The half-elf stared at Aditya for an entire minute. No matter how much he looked, he still couldn't understand why this man was the princess's future husband. Given how beautiful, how talented, and how big Julia's background is, even the continent's biggest genius wouldn't be worthy of standing beside her. I don't understand what uniqueness this man has that made Lord Adam choose him as her daughter's fiancé. If we are talking about cultivation, then yes, reaching mid-second order by the age of 19 is a feat of a genius. But there are hundreds of geniuses who are 100 times better than this man. This continent's best geniuses who stand at the top already have reached 3rd order or above. If those geniuses are not given a chance of marrying Lady Julia, then why a man like him is given the chance of marrying Lady Julia? My name is Eddie Wood. Eddie was not convinced. He has been watching and looking after Lady Julia as she grew up. In Eddie's opinion, Aditya is simply not worthy of becoming Lady Julia's husband. Compared to the princes and sons of dukes, what background did this man have? Aditya sensed the hostility in Eddie's eyes. Aditya instantly understood why this man looked so unhappy and slightly angry with Aditya. He has been expecting to face this kind of situation from the moment Julia asked him to meet her parents. Eddie addressed Aditya by his name without any formality, showing that he didn't respect Aditya. Aditya, if you want to learn from me, first I will need to face just how good you are. Do you mind if we have a small spar? Aditya inwardly smiled. There was no way he can't feel the fighting intent in Eddie's eyes. At this point, Eddie wasn't even bothering to hide the contempt and disdain in his eyes. So he wants to test me. Bring it on. Aditya was not afraid. As a dragon, he welcomed challenges with open arms. Alright. Walter became nervous. He can see the dissatisfaction in Eddie's eyes. Knowing Eddie's personality, the half-elf was looking to bully Aditya in the name of a spar. Young master, please reconsider. Sir, Eddie is a beginner 4th order cultivator, while you're a mid, 2nd order cultivator. I mean no disrespect, but you cannot fight him. Don't worry, for this fight, I will lower my strength to match yours. Eddie said quickly, fearing that Aditya will back out from the fight after hearing his cultivation level. Walter, I appreciate your concerning words, but I will be fine. Aditya looked around. Even a fool can see the dissatisfaction in the soldiers' faces. Just like Eddie, they too also thought that Aditya was not worthy. He needed to display his strength to prove that he was indeed worthy of standing together with Julia. Are you ready? Thank you for all the golden tickets and... Under Walter's nervous and concerned gaze, Aditya and Eddie stood opposite, facing each other. The soldiers also stopped sparring and moved back to give space for Sir Eddie and Aditya to fight. Are you ready? Eddie asked as his eyes radiated killing intent. He couldn't wait to beat the hell out of Aditya. Yes, I am ready. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Aditya's both arms transformed into dragon claws. His arms were covered in red crimson scales that seems to have a unique shine. His fingers turned into a dragon sharp and long dragon claws. Both of his arms were shining in crimson light. So he is a dragon. Eddie and others realized that the future husband of the princess is actually a dragon. Even Walter also looked very surprised. He did not know that Aditya was a dragon. What kind of dragon is he? He suppressed his bloodline to the extent that I assumed that he was a human. Walter wondered as stared at his arms. Not every dragon had the power to suppress its bloodline. Even beginner 4th order Eddie couldn't sense Aditya's bloodline even though he was only a few meters away from him. Ignoring everyone's surprised gazes, Aditya took out his peak 2-star sword that he had enchanted with runes. I am ready. Boom. The ground beneath Eddie and Aditya shattered into pieces as they charged at each other. Clang. Everyone heard the clunking sound of sword and greatsword colliding. Clang. Clang. After a few clashes, both of them retreated back and waited for the other party to attack. Eddie was a little impressed. Though he suppressed his speed to mid-2nd order, he did not hold back in using his strength. Each of his strikes was enough to kill a beginner 3rd order, yet Aditya managed to defend without taking any injuries. Aditya stared at Eddie. He could feel his arms getting numb. Each strike of the greatsword was filled with power that even a 3rd order would have trouble defending against. If he had not transformed his arms into dragon claws, just the shockwave of their clashes would have cracked his arms' bones if not broken his arms' bones. Crack. Everyone on the training ground heard the lightning cracking sound that came from Aditya. When they closely looked at his body, they found dark blue lightning was flickering around his body. With each passing second, the blue lightning around his body kept on increasing. Lightning dash. Boom. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Aditya disappeared as they kept hearing lightning cracking sounds. Even Walter rubbed his eyes several times in shock seeing how just Aditya moved. He no longer can see Aditya. The only thing he and others saw was a circle of blue flashes of lightning moving around Eddie. Swoosh. He is fast. His speed is even higher than some peak 3rd order. At this moment Eddie might look calm outside, but his heart wasn't calm at all. A mid-2nd order moving at the speed faster than most peak 3rd order is unheard of. Eddie tightly gripped the black greatsword as he waited for his attack. This battle long had passed the mark of 2nd order. Aditya moved 10 meters radius around Eddie. At this moment he was moving at the speed of 600 plus. With each step he took, the ground beneath him slightly trembled. Here it comes. Eddie felt the ground beneath him tremble for a small second. To his shock, the ground itself suddenly turned into magma. But before the magma touched his feet, he had jumped using all of his strength. Boom. The strength of a beginner 4th order cannot be underestimated. Eddie easily was able to jump 15 meters in the air. Aditya did not stop running in a circle even though Eddie had jumped in the air. Just as Eddie jumped from the ground, 7 red crimson bolts of lightning headed toward him from 7 directions. Crimson blink. The attack took Eddie off guard. After all, he wasn't prepared for anything like this. He still managed to react in time and block one of the crimson lightning bolts using his black greatsword. Boom. Everyone in the training ground couldn't believe it. Some of their bodies even trembled in fear. As the dust settled down, they found their teacher and also their commander with several injuries. The shirt that Eddie was previously wearing was burned. Everyone saw several deep burning marks on his chest, back, shoulders, and on his thighs. The burning mark on his back was the worst, as some part of his flesh was also burned. No way, the commander was actually injured by a mid-2nd order. This should be impossible. This is in fact impossible. What we're seeing is not less than a miracle. Neither party was holding back. Eddie at first simply wanted to teach William a lesson by using his strength. But who would have thought that the Lady Julia's future husband would be this powerful? Powerful enough to harm a beginner 4th order. Swoosh. Aditya appeared 20 meters away from Eddie. To think my crimson blink can only do this much damage to him shows just how strong a 4th order really is. If Aditya had used the same move against peak 3rd order, he was 100% sure that 3rd order would have instantly died. But Eddie was able to take on his attack only to end up with some third-degree burns. Eddie did not say a word, rather the killing intent in his eyes only increased. A mid-second order managing to land injuries on a beginner fourth order is unheard of. Right now Eddie wanted nothing more than to fight Aditya without holding back at all. Eddie was the general and also the commander of Lord Adam. He has led troops to many battles and has managed to win all of them. He even forgot how long it has been since the last time he was injured. Now that he finally has found an opponent that could injure him, he wanted to fight. He totally forgot that Aditya was Lord Adam's guest and most importantly Lady Julia's husband. Eddie raised the 1 meters long black greatsword above his head as he began condensing more and more of his mana in his greatsword, causing a faint blue aura to surround the black greatsword. The faint blue aura that was surrounding the black greatsword started expanding in length. Aditya, Walter, and other soldiers looked up and were horrified to see a 20 meters long blue transparent energy spiraling around the black greatsword. Eddie, stop. You're going too far. Walter desperately shouted as he believed that there was no way Aditya could take the attack. This attack would also damage a large of the castle itself. However, Eddie was deeply immersed in the battle. He does not know how long it has been since he found someone who can give him a good fight. Great calamity / If Walter had the strength, the power, the agility, then he would have rushed to save Aditya from this horrifying attack. The attack descended on Aditya at lightning speed. Boom! A thunderous sound shook the entire city of Abigail. All the citizens who were sleeping peacefully were instantly awakened by the thunderous roar of heaven. The castle and the areas around the castle began shaking as if some great earthquake had come. Young master. Walter and all the soldiers were blown away from the shockwave of the attack. If someone looked in the direction of the honored family castle, then they would see a giant mushroom cloud rising in the air. The roar of heaven also awakened Julia, Zach, Adam, and his wife Sophie from their sleep. Did someone attack our castle? Meanwhile, the entire training ground, which was 5 kilometers big, and a big part of the castle were destroyed by the attack. All the soldiers who were standing at the side were blown away by the explosion of shockwave like leaves. The only person who was still standing in the middle of the shockwave was Eddie himself. Dust and pebbles were flying around, making it difficult for him to see anything. He simply stood still as he can still feel that Aditya was still alive. What happened here? Adam, Sophie, Julia, and her little brother Zach arrived near the training ground. The only thing they saw was dust flying everywhere. Because of the dust, no one was able to see what just had happened. Sophie noticed Walter lying next to the wall. His face looked pale. Sophie runs to Walter's side and hurriedly fed him a healing potion. Cough. Cough. Walter coughed out a mouthful of blood. What happened here? Adam asked while barely restraining his killing intent. He is known as the Savage Lion for no reason. Not even the Emperor has the balls to just directly attack his castle. Cough. Young master and Eddie. Before Walter could finish the rest of the sentence, he lost his consciousness and fell to the ground. But from these 3 words, everyone instantly understood what was happening. Julia's face turned pale as her body began to shiver in fright. Her eyes instantly turned red as tears filled her eyes. But from these 3 words, everyone instantly understood what was happening. Julia's face turned pale as her body began to shiver in fright. Daughter won't worry. But Aditya. Julia felt choked. Even though she bite that bad man, fought with him, and sometimes even punched him, she deeply loved that bad wolf. Don't worry, your man is still alive. As a 4th order Adam still can sense Aditya. Even though the cloud of dust was preventing him from seeing anything else. Her dad's words worked like medicine. She instantly felt relieved. The burden in her heart instantly disappeared. Dad, is he alright? Meanwhile, the little brother of Julia wondered who this man was. He wanted to see the face of the man for whom his dear sister shed tears for. I am not sure. But he is alive. Adam also calmed down a little knowing that bastard was still alive. Sophie also sighed in relief. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Aditya could be seen standing on the ground and breathing heavily. Huff. Huff. His upper wear was burned from the shockwave. The shockwave itself was more dangerous than he assumed. Despite protecting his body using mana and his dragon scales, he still suffered some burns and injuries from the shockwave of the attack. Right before Eddie launched his attack, the Dragon King had used one of his passive skill. Blast of Divine Fury. All of the host stats except for mana will be temporarily increased by 50%. Activating the skill increased Aditya's stats by 50%. Meaning that his agility, which had reached 600 plus, after activating Lightning Dash, was further increased by 50%. Before the Great Calamity / fell on him, he was able to barely dodge the attack using his 900 plus agility. Huff. Huff. Even if my stats increase because of my skills, my physical body is simply not strong enough to handle the shockwave of a 4th order attack. If Aditya had not used mana to protect his body, his entire body would have exploded in a bloody mist. Even then he still suffered a lot of injuries. His upper body was burned and was bleeding. He wanted to scream as loud as he can. The pain was just too much. Aditya, I know you're still alive. Since you have pushed me this far. Let's continue this battle, till we have a real winner. Eddie sounded super excited as he said those words. Adam and Sophie instantly frowned hearing Eddie's voice. Julia also felt hatred for Eddie. You shoot him before things get out of hand. He already has destroyed a large part of the castle. No, I say we let them continue. Aditya still can hold his ground against a 4th order. Just as Adam said those words, the training ground, which was covered with clouds of dust, was dispersed by a wave of crimson-red flame. What is that? Sophie felt fear seeing the crimson-red flame. She instinctively pulled Zack and Julia behind her to protect them. This is the crimson flame. The most powerful flame in the whole world. Just how did this kid have the crimson flame? Adam never saw the crimson flame with his eyes, but he had heard that this flame was terrifying. The flame's temperature was even higher than the temperature of magma. Eddie, standing 50 meters away from Aditya, saw the wave of crimson flame rising in the air. Ha ha ha. This is what I am talking about. Eddie no longer had that calm look on his face. He laughed and behaved like a crazy person. Being trained under Adam, Eddie also was a battle maniac. Eddie closed his right palm and formed a fist. He then condensed all of his mana in his right fist and punched the ground that now had become a huge crater. The previous explosion had turned the entire training ground into a giant crater more than 500 meters deep. Boom. Mom, what is that? Zack was clearly frightened by the wave of water that rose behind Eddie. That bastard, why is he using this kind of attack here? Even though Adam said these words in anger, he failed to realize that he was also showing an excited smile on his face. He simply couldn't wait to see how just powerful Aditya. Great tsunami. Boom. In just 5 seconds a huge wave of water formed behind Eddie. Aditya, you better give all in this attack, otherwise you will die. Eddie stood on the top of the water. Go. The tsunami was 30 meters tall, taller than the entire castle, and 100 meters wide. Adam's face changed as he hurriedly used his mana to protect the soldiers who already had lost consciousness from the previous explosion. Some soldiers who were standing near instantly died from the shockwave, while most of them suffered serious burns. Sophie, protect the children. Sophie nodded as she also created a wild mana barrier around them. Julia also used her power to create another extra layer of mana barrier. While Zack shrunk down and hid behind his mother's legs. This Crimson King will never back out from a fight. 2 pairs of red crimson wings appeared on Aditya's back. He flew 30 meters above the ground as he used Crimson Blaze. Bang! Breaking the ground, the crimson flame started rising in the air. The crimson flame wave was 30 meters big and 50 meters wide. Just the high temperature of the flame caused the castle to start burning. Even though Adam and his family were standing almost 1.9 kilometers away from Aditya, they still can feel the terrifying temperature of those crimson flames. Boom! 2 great forces of nature clashed. When the tsunami hit the crimson flame, everyone noticed that the temperature of the crimson flame was so high that just from a single touch, the water was evaporating, turning into mist. Even though Eddie tried to overcome and defeat Aditya's flames, his greatest attack was turned into mist, which instantly covered half of the city along with the castle and the training ground. Huff! Huff! I am out of mana. While standing 500 meters deep in the middle of the crater, Eddie looked at the crimson flame that still looked the same as before. If he had clashed against a normal fire-type cultivator, then he would have won. But what he faced was the strongest flame in the whole world. Before, clouds of dust were covering the training ground, but now a thick layer of mist was covering the entire castle and half of the city. It looks like Aditya won. Adam was still shocked. How can a mere mid-2 order defeat a beginner 4th order? Eddie, you gave your strongest attack, now allow me to present you my strongest attack. Hearing the loud voice, everyone raised their heads. Adam with a wave of his hand cleared the mist that was blocking their view. When the mist was cleared, Eddie nearly lost his consciousness from shock seeing 50 meters big sphere made of crimson flame rapidly descending toward him. The crimson orb was 1 kilometer above the sky. Everyone in the city was able to see the crimson orb and was frightened to death. What is he doing? This attack will destroy the whole city. Adam felt his throat getting dry. His heart beat wildly. Even he was not sure if he can defend against this kind of attack. In the middle of the 50 meters giant sphere of crimson flame, everyone saw a person rapidly descending toward Honored Noble House's castle. Just how much mana does this kid has? The only reason Aditya was able to keep on fighting this long was because of his mana. The Black Heart provided him with a huge supply of mana. Eddie bitterly smiled seeing the 50 meters giant crimson sphere descending toward him. There was no way he can stop or defend against this kind of attack. I give up. I lose this battle. Silence. It was as if the entire city had heard those words. A beginner 4th order surrendering in front of a mid-2nd order. This kind of thing has never happened. Adam and Sophie were also frightened. If Aditya was this horrifying strong being still being at mid-2nd order, how powerful he will become once he reaches 4th order. I win. Aditya extended his crimson dragon wings and stopped when he was 500 meters above the ground. The crimson flame around him started disappearing. From this height, he can see how just big the crater was. The crater was 500 meters deep and more than 1,000 meters wide. In the middle of the crater, Eddie was kneeling on the ground as he stared at Aditya with endless respect and admiration in his eyes. Meanwhile, Julia treated Walter with a healing pill. When he regained his consciousness, the first thing he saw was Aditya standing 500 meters above the sky and looking down like a true overlord. If he is not worthy, then no one else is worthy. Eddie stared at the sky while kneeling on the ground. For a moment he felt like he was staring at God. In the next few seconds, he lost consciousness due to the lack of mana. Meanwhile, Adam and everyone in the city stared at the figure with red crimson wings flying standing in the air. Huff. Huff. By now Aditya was also starting to feel weak. His stats might be significantly improved, but his body was not strong enough to take on the attack of 4th order. While breathing heavily he flew down. It looks like in the heat of the battle, we have gone too far. 80% of the castle was either destroyed or burned because of his crimson flames. Aditya landed right before Adam and his family. He knew he would have to explain a lot of things. He was even ready to be scolded by Adam. But before anyone could say anything, Aditya nearly fell down when a figure jumped on him and tightly hugged his wounded body. You were too reckless. Sigh. This was just a spar. Adam and Sophie looked at each other and smiled. Others might have not noticed it, but Aditya never transformed into a dragon while fighting Eddie. This told that he was still holding back while fighting Eddie. Walter, tell me what happened here. Adam cannot ignore this huge commotion. 80% of the castle was burned and destroyed. A few hundred soldiers died and the whole training ground had become a deep crater. Early in the morning, the young master asked me if I can show him where the training ground was. Meanwhile, Aditya was looking at the small boy who was also looking at him while hiding behind his mother. This little boy was Zach, Julia's little brother. Julia often talked about her little brother. This was supposed to be a small spar, but never did I expect that this small spar would turn into a life and death battle. After hearing the whole story, Adam did not look good. He felt so angry that if he could he would have torn Eddie with his bare hands. Walter, give Eddie a healing potion. Bring him to me. I will personally punish that man for insulting my daughter's fiancé. Aditya is part of the family. I will not tolerate it if someone insults my family. Meanwhile, Julia stopped hugging him. She took out a 3-star healing potion and gave it to Aditya. Seriously, why do you even have to fight him? Julia sounded angry. She was looking to see if he had any other wounds on his body. Aditya couldn't help but smile. Even though he won't say it, in this fight, he had to prove that he was worthy of Julia. He was fighting with her. With my current stats, I can even fight against a beginner 4th order. Maybe in my dragon transformation, I can fight a mid 4th order. A moment later, Eddie kneeling before Adam. Eddie, tell me why you did this? Before the wild lion, even Eddie felt scared. He lowered his head as his body slightly trembled in fear. I thought that Aditya wasn't worthy. No, my lord. I wouldn't dare. Eddie, are you questioning me? No, my lord. I wouldn't dare. Then why do you feel that Aditya is unworthy when I have accepted him as my daughter's fiancé? Eddie's face turned pale as he realized his mistakes. My lord, I have made a mistake. I would to redeem myself. Tell me, what do you think of Aditya after this battle? Adam asked instead of replying. Eddie glanced at Aditya, who's standing next to Julia. If he is not worthy, then no one is worthy. You will receive no salary for the next 5 years. Your salary will be used to reconstruct the castle. Now as punishment, I want you to cut off your right arm and right leg. Eddie gritted his teeth and nodded. He had no regret. This fight brought him satisfaction and made him realize that there were many things that he needed to improve on. Julia covered Zach's eyes as she didn't wish her little brother to see this kind of scene. With a swing, Eddie cut off his left arm and left arm. He gritted his teeth and tried to keep his consciousness. He felt his mind was going to stop working from the pain itself. Give him a 5-star healing pill. After taking the 5-star healing pill, Aditya was shocked to see Eddie's left arm and left arm leg were regrowing. He heard that a 5-star healing pill can even bring a person from the brink of death. As long as a person has one single breath left in him, that person could be healed using a 5-star healing pill. Since you have dared to insult Aditya, from now on you will be Aditya's bodyguard as long as he stays here. You shall protect him all the time. Aditya raised an eyebrow. What Julia's father was thinking. Why would he need a bodyguard when he can even take on 4th order? Understood, my lord. Walter, take Eddie with you and heal all the soldiers. Honey, I will have to go out for an hour. Adam needed to contact the construction team and also give an explanation to the citizen of this city. All right. Adam then disappeared almost as if he had teleported. Are you all right? Sophie worriedly glanced at Aditya. I am doing fine now. His skin was healing at rapid speed. In the next few hours, he should be completely recovered. Aditya, let me introduce you to the next head of the House of Honored. Come on, don't be shy. The little boy came out of hiding and innocently looked at Aditya. The little boy looked very much like younger Adam. Except that he had purple color hair and purple color pupil. The boy was still wearing a cute set of pajamas. Zach, why don't you introduce yourself? Zach looked at Aditya for a few seconds before bowing his head. Hello. My name is Zach Honored. It's nice to meet you. Hello, Zach. I am Aditya. You can just call me Big Brother. Zach shyly nodded his head. Sophie was a little worried that Zach might not like Aditya, but it seems she was worried for nothing. Alright, since we're awake I will go to make breakfast. Why don't the two of you play with Zach for a while? Alright. After Sophie left, Julia brought them to the garden where she used to play in her free time. The garden was located on the other side of the training ground. Fortunately, only a small part of the garden was destroyed. Welcome to the garden. This is a garden. The garden was more like a forest with thick and long trees growing. I thought mostly grew your herbs in the garden. Julia rolled her eyes hearing his words. I don't have time for gardening. And why should I try gardening herbs when I can buy them with money? What Julia said was true. Money was the only thing that Julia never lacked. Besides, if I start gardening, most of my free time will be wasted and I wouldn't have gotten time to play with my lovely brother. Saying that, Julia rubbed Zach's purple hair, making the little boy very happy. How old is he? He should have turned 7 this year. Even though the little boy looked like Adam, his character and personality were very different from his father's. Unlike that savage man, he was more like Julia's mother. So the daughter has mother's appearance and father's fierce personality, while the son was father's appearance but mother's personality. Aditya, why don't you play with Zach for a while? I will be back in 5 minutes. Julia still hasn't washed her face or anything. Because of the explosion, she just directly got up and run to if everything was alright. Alright. Aditya knew the reason. He did not stop her. He instead paid his attention to the little boy, who was also curiously looking at him. Big brother, are you big sister's boyfriend? Aditya smiled as he sat under the giant tree. He rested his back on the tree trunk while signaling the boy to sit next to him. Yes, I am your big sister's boyfriend and also her future husband. Big brother, did you fight with Uncle Eddie? Zach looked excited for some reason. Yes. Not just did I fight with him, but I also defeated your uncle. Even Aditya himself was feeling a little proud of his accomplishment. He beat someone who was 2 orders above him. Something which is normally impossible to accomplish. Big brother, can you please show me some magic? What kind of magic? I want to see those red crimson flames. They looked so beautiful. Alright. But careful. With a snap of his finger, a fist-size orb of crimson flame appeared 2 meters away from Aditya. He purposely lowered the temperature of the flame so that Zach wouldn't be harmed in any way. After playing with Zach for a few minutes, Aditya couldn't help but ask. Zach, do you know where your grandfather is? Have you ever met him? Aditya asked curiously, as neither Sophie nor Adam mentioned anything about their parents. I heard that my grandfather died while fighting the bad guys. As for my grandmother, I heard that she is in seclusion. Zach replied while chasing after the small wisps of crimson flames. Have you ever met your grandpa? Nope. I only heard about her from my mother. Underscore. I have some internet issues, so I will upload only one channel. Aditya played with Zach for 15 minutes. At first, Zach was a little shy and reserved toward him at the beginning. But as they played together, the little boy started telling him many things about Julia and about their family. Sorry, if I made you wait. Julia now had changed her clothes. Right now she was wearing a knee-length black long-sleeved V-neck dress, giving her a youthful vibe. Today she had tied her long purple hair in a ponytail, exposing her nape. Seeing her nape exposed, Aditya felt his throat getting a little dry. He felt his heart eagerly itching to kiss that place. She undoubtedly looked very pretty in that dress. You're later. You told us to wait 5 minutes, but you ended up being 16 minutes late. Wow, big sister, you look beautiful. Julia rubbed Zach's purple hair with a smile as they ignored Aditya as if he wasn't there at all. Mom asked me to wear this dress. Julia replied after playing with Zach for a few minutes. You indeed look very beautiful. Humph. Of course, this princess looks pretty. Julia had a hidden smile as she played with Zach. Zach, don't you have school today? Aditya raised his eyebrows in surprise. Sister, I took a week's leave since you have returned home. I want to spend more time with you. Good job. But you better not do it again. Of course. Hee hee. My parents wanted Zach to go to school and make friends. I also did the same thing when I was Zach's age. Of course, no one in the school, other than Zach's teachers and the principal, knows about his real identity. To Zach's classmate, he is the son of a rich merchant. The common class people tend to keep a certain distance from nobles. It was mainly because of the nobles' behavior. Most nobles consider middle-class people as low-class people and wouldn't normally talk with them. They would always look down on middle-class people. Sophie and Adam wanted their children to be humble, kind, and gentle. They did not want their children to become arrogant like other noble children. This is also why she did not allow Zach to interact much with other noble children, fearing that they will also influence Zach. After Julia came, the duo played with Zach for a while. While playing, Aditya also learned many things about her family. Julia's 2 uncles. One of uncles was still unmarried as her uncle was focusing on reaching the peak of cultivation. Compared to 2 brothers, the second uncle did not have much talent in cultivation. So became a merchant, and after few years, he found someone that he liked. After getting married, Julia's second uncle settled down in the Beast continent. The last time I saw my second uncle was when Zach was born. You know, traveling from one continent to another takes a lot of time, not to mention the dangers one has to face while traveling between 2 continents. So my uncle very rarely comes to see us. She deeply respected her second uncle, but she feel that family bond with second uncle and his family. To her, second uncle and his family is like a distant relative. Speaking of continent, I have some plans of traveling to other continents in near future. Maybe in a few months. Julia stopped playing with Zach. She raised her head and looked at Aditya to see what he was exactly thinking. Seeing Julia's stare, Aditya decided to explain. Julia, this world is very big. Don't you also want to explore the world? Go to different continents and meet new people. So which continents are you planning on visiting in the near future? Julia curiously asked. Even the goddess of alchemy has never went to another continent. Her parents felt that it would be too dangerous for someone like Julia to go to other continent. They feared if the people of that continent learned about her identity as the goddess of alchemy, they would try to capture her. Sometimes parents worries too much. Currently I have 2 continents in my head. First is the West Nia continent which I will have to visit with Alicia. And second is the Beast continent. In a few months he will have to go to West Nia continent with Alicia, the goddess of wealth. But before his trip, Aditya has to increase the power of his kingdom so that even in his absence, others can protect and defend the kingdom from foreign attacks. I can understand that your reason for going to West Nia continent, but what about Beast continent? Zack had stopped playing and was paying attention to what Aditya and Julia was talking about. The little boy had an curious and adventurous mind. He also have dreamed of traveling to other continents. The Beast continent has more than 100 variety of races inhabiting it. I want to explore that continent and also if possible, bring some beast men with me. Being beast men, their bodies was much stronger than humans. While an average human has the strength of 10, an average beast man has the strength of 15 to 20. Compared to an army of human soldiers, an army of beast men would double if not triple the military strength of the kingdom. Beside, beast men are known for their undying loyalty. Once they consider someone as their friend, they won't even hesitate to give up their life for that friend. From what Aditya has heard, the beast man does not like other races, especially the humans. Among all the races living in this world, humans are considered to be most cunning. All beast men hates humans and does not like to interact with them. This is also why marriage between beast men and human are very rare. When are you planning on going to the Beast continent? Julia curiously asked. Not sure. But I am planning on making this trip after I return from West Nia continent. Big brother. Big brother. Can I also come with you? Zack excitedly asked as his eyes sparkled in stars. Julia and Aditya looked at each other. Aditya does not want to break little Zack's heart by saying no. Even if Aditya wanted to take Zack with him, there was no way Sophie and Adam would allow Zack to visit a different continent. Aditya has seen just how protective Adam was about his family. If Aditya even asks Adam about taking Zack to a different continent, he was sure that his father-in-law would beat his ass. When I visit the Beast continent, I will take you with me. Aditya couldn't bring himself to say no and break this child's heart. Promise? Promise. After a while, breakfast was finally ready. Everyone sat on the table. Zack was sitting in the middle with his big sister on his right and his big brother on his left. Kid, you wanted to learn from a runemaster, right? Well, guess what, he is here. After breakfast you can go and meet him. I also have convinced him to train you for next 14 days. Thank you, uncle. Given how useful and valuable runmasters are, no faction would let their runmaster teach a person from different faction. Aditya was very grateful to Adam and Sophie. Ever since the moment he came to this house, both of them have been treating him like their own family member. There is no need to thank a family member. Aditya nodded, looking at Sophie. By the way, kid, I have already told the whole city about you. After what you did, I thought it would be perfect time to tell the city about you. Now there are all sorts of rumor about you. When you go outside, you better be a little careful if you don't want any trouble. Even if get into trouble, don't worry, I have your back. There was no way Adam would let anyone bully Aditya in his territory. Alright. Aditya did not care about rumors or anything. Before, Adam and Sophie was worried that the nobles would try to bully Aditya after the engagement announcement is made. But now, seeing how powerful he was, the Julia's parents no longer would have to worry about him being bullied. Aditya was more than strong enough to stand up for himself. Mom, I will be going out for a while. Where are you going? I am going to meet my old friends. It's been ages since I last saw them. I would like to spend some time with them. Do you want to come with me? Julia wanted to show her fiancé to her friends, but she was embarrassed to say it. I can meet them later. You should take this time to have some girls talk. Aditya knew from experience that girls talked about various things. Even a whole day of talking might not be enough for them. Humph. I will just take Zack with me. Julia snorted and ate her food in a way like she was punishing them. Aditya and Sophie looked at each other and sighed. Sophie and Aditya both knew this personality was inherited from Adam. Sigh. I guess I should have agreed to go with her. The main reason Aditya didn't go with her was because he was planning on spending the whole day on improving his rune skills. Unlike his war dancer class, the rune monarch class won't evolve to 3rd order even if he levels up to 3rd order. The only way to level up rune monarch class to 3rd order would be through learning and practicing runes. After breakfast, Julia and Aditya was going back to their rooms. While walking on the corridor, Aditya couldn't handle the awkward silence. The goddess refused to talk with him after he rejected her and was only giving her cold shoulder. Sigh. When are you going to return? Aditya asked after a long silence. I will return before dinner. After another minute of silence, Aditya opened his mouth. I was thinking if we could meet up during evening. Julia stopped walking. She looked at Aditya and smiled. Sure, we can meet up. For in the evening come to the Western Plaza. Alright, I will be there in time. Since he was here, it wouldn't harm to have some fun and make some memories. Really, thank you very much to all those who send support with valuable golden click. Opening the door to the underground training room, Aditya found an old man sitting on the floor and drinking tea. The old man was wearing a simple white shirt and pants. The most eye-catching thing about the old man was his dark red eyes, which looked very similar to his eyes. With a glance, Aditya knew that this old man was a vampire. The old man looked like he was about 60 years old or above. He had a long white beard on his chin and short white hair. The old man had a katana placed on his thighs. Hearing the door opening sound, he put the teacup on the floor and then raised his head to look at the young man with long blue hair and a handsome face. You must be Aditya, Princess Julia's fiancé. Yes, I am Aditya. It's nice to meet you. Since this old man was going to be teaching him, Aditya slightly bowed his head in respect. My name is Tobias. You can call me Grandpa. Julia also called Tobias Grandpa. Tobias was one of Adam's most trusted generals and the only runemaster of the honored family. Tobias has been serving the honored family for 3 generations now. In the honored family, Tobias is considered an elder. Even Adam has to give some respect to him. Come and sit here. With a wave of his hand, a small table appeared before Tobias. Aditya nodded and sat on the other side of the table while facing Tobias. You want to learn advanced rune spells, right? The Dragon King nodded his head in response. You're currently someone who has mastered the basics and now will start learning the advanced rune spells. How much do you exactly know about runes? This question itself made him feel a little confused. But after several seconds of thinking, he decided to answer the question using the knowledge he had of runes. Runes are like mathematics. Just like with mathematics, runes also keeps getting difficult with each level. Runes are a unique language that is used to control different forces of this world. Anything else? At my current level, I can make mana gathering formation, 2-star defensive formation, 2-star attacking formation, paper explosions, basic weapon enchantment, soul contract, and also fire attribute rune spells. Alright, what do you think of runes? This question only further increased his confusion. I guess I have made you confused. Let's rephrase my question. How do you use runes in battles? Do you think that runes are meant for support or for combat? I always have used runes are supportive tools. Aditya used his knowledge to give runic enhancement to all the 2-star weapons in his treasury. This is where you're wrong. Seeing Aditya's confused look, the old man smiled and said. Let me explain. There are all kinds of runes. Runes can be used for attacking, defense, and supporting. Supporting runes are the easiest to learn, while formation runes are the hardest to learn. If you want to make 3-star runes, you will need to choose what kind of rune expert you want to become. You got 3 paths: supportive runes, formation runes, and weapon enchantment runes. Supportive runes are the easiest, but it gets very difficult to master supportive runes after a certain level. As for formation runes and weapon enchantment runes, these 2 paths are very difficult to master. After thinking for a while, Aditya couldn't help but ask. Why I can't learn all 3 paths at the same time? Ha ha ha. Instead of answering his question, the old vampire started laughing as if he had heard the funniest joke of the year. After laughing for 5 minutes, the old man finally stopped. At this point, Aditya was frowning. He was confident that with his instant learning and adaptation skill and Rune Monarch class title, he can master all 3 paths. Boy, it's impossible. Every 3 paths are like trees. Each tree will open new branches and leaves. Forget about mastering all 3 paths. If you can master even 1 path, you would become one of the most powerful rune masters in the whole world. I never have heard of anyone who can master all 3 paths. But unlike others, I have instant learning and adaptation innate skill and Rune Monarch class. I don't think anyone in this world has even heard of Rune Monarch class before. Grandpa Tobias, can you tell me the name of your class? My class is Rune Master. Have you ever heard of a class named Rune Monarch? It was then Aditya enjoyed the change in Tobias's facial expression. He looked like someone who has been struck by a bolt of lightning. What did you say? I asked if you know about Rune Monarch's class. For the next 5 minutes, Tobias did not say anything. Aditya observed the changes in his expression. In the end, he looked disappointed and sad. Sigh. Boy, from where did you heard this name from? Tobias' old eyes suddenly looked very sharp. Almost as if he wouldn't hesitate to kill Aditya if he lied. I heard the name from reading an old book. Of course it was a big lie. There was no way he would smile like an idiot and tell him about his second class. Rune Monarch is a mythical class. In the history, one person ever had this class. But before that person could reach the peak, he was betrayed and then killed. If he had reached the peak by mastering all the 3 paths, he would have become the most powerful being in the entire world. That time was also considered a golden period of rune masters. It is said that person taught thousands of people about runes. But with his death the golden period eventually came to an end. I never knew this Rune Monarch had such deep history. Aditya felt kind of weird. He already had a heavenly dragon bloodline which no one in the whole world has. He now had a class that had the potential to make him the strongest being in the entire world. The system was very generous with its rewards. Enough talking. Since you want to master all 3 paths, I won't stop you. But aside from weapon enchantment, I don't have much knowledge about the other 2 paths. I have collected some books on other paths which I have kept in the library. You can take a look at those books when you have time. I will be teaching you about advanced weapon enchantment. With the wave of his several 3-star weapons appeared in front of Aditya. There are many kinds of enchantment. Today, just like any other day, Abigail City was lively as always. People were busy with their lives. But today was a little different. Unlike other days, the citizen of the city had awakened by a noise of a thunderous explosion. In front of a fancy restaurant, several girls were waiting with their boyfriends. Do you know anything about the explosion that was heard all over the city? I heard that General Eddie fought with Lord Adam's guest. The fight was so intense that almost 80% of the castle was destroyed. I even heard that General Eddie was strictly punished by Julia's father. Speaking of Julia, I have so many questions that I want to ask her. Yeah, me too. 3 girls chatted with each other while their boyfriends stood together waiting for Julia. Everyone stopped talking as they heard the sound of a carriage coming toward them. The golden carriage eventually stopped and a figure in a dark green dress came out of the carriage. For a moment everyone on the street forgot to speak as they were stunned by seeing just how beautiful she was. After getting out of the carriage, Julia and the girls hugged each other. How have you been? It's been a long time. You suddenly left without informing us. While the girls talked with each other, the boyfriends of those girls looked at each other. They haven't seen Julia for 2 years and now she has become even more beautiful. She deserves to be called the goddess. Neither of their girlfriends could even come near Julia in terms of beauty. Julia, let me introduce you to our boyfriends. Aditya, under the guidance of Tobias, practiced for hours before Sophie called them to have lunch. Since the old man Tobias was a vampire, he did not join Aditya for lunch. He instead went to drink fresh blood from his human slaves. It looks like Julia won't be joining us from lunch. This was the first time Aditya was having food with Julia's parents alone. He was kind of nervous and also a little awkward. Where is Zach? He curiously asked. He is having a training session, Adam replied while eating. Even though Zach is only 7 years old, we're making sure he at least gets some basic training from a young age which would help him build a strong foundation. Sophie explained the reason. By the way, is it hard to learn runes? Sophie asked. No, it's actually easier. Since I can ask any doubt I have to Grandpa Tobias. That's good. I am sorry Aditya, but these 2 weeks we will be a little busy. Since Julia's birthday is coming up, we have to prepare everything. There is no need to apologize for that. After having lunch, Aditya offered to help Sophie in washing the dishes. But she refused and told him to just focus on learning runes. After lunch, Aditya trained under old man Tobias' guidance for a few hours before Tobias left as he had some work. You keep practicing. Your current speed is too slow. You should be able to finish enchanting a 3-star weapon in an hour. The current Aditya was taking almost 2.5 hours to do the same thing. Before leaving the room, Tobias turned around and looked at Aditya. Even though he looked very calm outside, his heart was like a violent tornado. When he was young, Tobias was called a rune genius by everyone. But today, he finally met someone that made him realize that there are bigger geniuses out there. Compared to those heavenly geniuses, his talent in rune could be considered average.